Hello, welcome to Stable and Scale, one of the place where you can learn and share wisdom. I am Lakshman. Today we are gonna see how to deploy multiple images or Docker containers in a single instance. For now, today we are gonna see how to deploy on Azure Web Apps for containers. So, without wasting any time, let's get started. Before getting into the steps actually, so let's see a few jargons which is we'll be talking. One is actually Docker Compose. So Docker Compose is like defining and actually running the multiple containers which you used to run multiple containers at the present in a one single instance. It's like it can be in a web app as container, it can be in a container instance, it can be in container apps, or it may be on some any kind of platform where if you want to containerize multiple application to be in a single pod or single pod, those kind of stuff you can use it. So that's about Docker Compose. All other the jargons which I've been using is Nginx. Most probably Nginx is the front-end server. It's like setting up an HTTP on HTML files. So Docker Compose, and all. If you are not checked out about ACR, you can check the previous video which I have shared lot of about publishing and pushing the Python jobs to ACR and stuff. So and Docker Compose will be writing some files, and I have some predefined templates how to write those files, and we will be pushing that directly the Copper Compose to the web app container. And it's not only a container, we can push to ACI, which is Azure Container Instance. We can push to Azure Container Apps as well. And for other AWS and GCPs, you can have a respective same kind of container instance provisioning, so you can push these files to their deployment also. So I'm just doing with the web app, and if we have time we will cover up ACI a little bit, how to deploy those stuff. So the first step is dockerizing the Nginx server under Python. So Nginx is like each and every web app, it's required to have some 80 ports or a 443 ports which required to get exposed. Okay, so that it's actually working. So it expose some HTML so that you can validate, and it will start running. For a web app it to get run, you need 80 port or 80 port to be get exposed. So that's why I've added Nginx here. And the primary job is like picking up some queues, messages and processing. So previous video we done with the Azure function. Now we are gonna do with plain Python, where it will wait for 5 minutes and check for messages, and it will receive the message and we will start processing. Okay, it's like a simple printing of the message name so that it get clarified. So second we will write a Docker Compose, and third we will deploy to the container apps. So this is what we are gonna do. This is the steps which we gonna follow. Okay, so on the first step we will start. Okay, so on step 1, so dockerizing. So I already have a app which is got running. So I have a Docker file, and I have a simple HTML of showing up in local. Here is a plain HTML, JavaScript and stuff. So let's move this code here inside this body h1. So this is the body, and this is the ng config files. Those who are non familiar with the ng config file, this is like Nginx. Nginx is like hosting up and the front end, mostly probably for front end applications, for hosting up HTML files, those kind of stuff, and for proxying and other stuff. Nginx is a very good candidate for most front ends. So this is the by default the Nginx actually workflows. This we have a process with HTTP, and with a server which runs in a port 80, and checks for status location if there was location /nginx.html, where I'll be, if you can see here, nginx slash nginx html, you can pretty much guess I'm just pushing this actual code inside this repository and in the index with html. If something comes up in css and jpg, you can just I'm asking you to route to this one. If it is a status, just send me that it is alive, that's it. So this is the by default. If it is actually running, it will send me alive 200. This is like a endpoint port api which is directly in nginx config. So, and this is on it. So on the python job, I created a python environment with the envs with storage queue and keys. So I have only one file made it. So this is the file. So what the packages I am using is .NET storage queue and the python env for my envs to get consumed from the actual environment variables. So just getting it, and I am actually decoding and printing the message which I am actually sending, and I am deleting that message actually. Once that's about that one. This method is actually checking for initiating the queue and getting the information. This is the main schedule. So it first checks what are all the pending images which actually when it starts. Once that is done, it will checks for every 5-minute interval and checks which is this is 5 minutes. So on every 5 minutes it is actually started checking for menu messages which they require to process. It's a pulling mechanism, it's not a push, it's like a pulling mechanism. Previous video which we are doing with Azure function, it's a pushing mechanism. Only the message is pushed, it will start. This is the pulling mechanism. If you want a work cycle, like you have to check for the messages or documents in a specific directory or specific messaging queue, where you have to take the files and make it process. This is the best candidate because you want to do it periodically, and periodically you want to fetch the information, push it off. It depends upon your requirement. If you want to distribute it, you can just go with the Azure function, which you can check with the previous video. I have a lengthy and deploying the Azure function, containerize, Dockerize and container and deploy in container apps for scalability. Same storage queue kind of stuff. So with the keyboard interruption, I'm just stopping it so that I can stop the application locally as well as in the services also. So this is the simple requirement. This is all about the nginx and the python. So I have a readme file where it actually for dockerizing the stuff. So what I will do is I will, today's date is actually 27 is right, 27 4 2024. So I just making it right. So I will just copy copy copy. I made here also. Let's make copy and copy. So this is the docker file. So I'm just gonna open it up. I'm just gonna go inside nginx and then get rid of this one, just copying and pasting it here. So oh shit. So once this is done, you will able to get the images. Let me like it is done, it will show up. Let me spin up the docker and get you back. My docker was got started, so let me run the command. So what it will check, it running in the nginx 1.15.8 alpha. So it just I got the image, copied the file, and that is done. So if I go into my docker space, if I type dev some 27, so you can see with the nginx it's labeled with 27 is been available. So let's push this actually to the ACR. I already created an ACR in my account, so I'm just tagging with my ACR container instance name, and I'm just gonna push it. So this is almost done. So for the first time users, it will take a few seconds for you to just push. So as I already pushed the the same image with this different labels on the my ACR, so it just went in. So for the next step, what I will is I will dockerize the Python. Okay, sorry, I have to switch to the Python and start, so that it takes the Python 10. And what I'm doing is I'm just pushing the requirement.txt file in, running the requirement txt file, making a working directory, and just moving only the main.py. That is the only file which need to be get executed. Okay, so that is done. So once that is done, actually let me run that actual and this is the server which I actually working. So what we can do is I can just have a copy of this Nginx over outside here. So there was a command called for docker compose -env file dot slash dot env. Okay, so docker compose up, I'm just passing this environment variables to it, so for me to run it locally. So once I copy it, I paste it. Oh, so let me recheck. So this is the command what I have to push, put the .env front end. So this will start running the docker servers and both the Nginx as well as my and stuff. So if you want to have a build, you can have this build directory here. If you don't need to actually build it, so you can just leave it and run it actually. So you can see here, so this is getting started. So you can see some few messages are getting loaded here with some stuff. So and if as I am running in multiple, so you can see it just collides with multiple options. And that's how we dockerize. And once it is done, we have completed the first step and build it and push it to the actual stuff. So almost we covered up the second one also. So for docker compose file which we actually check. So on the second step, let me clarify you. So the docker compose file is consist of actually the version, which version the docker compose file is, and which has multiple servers. The services is meaning, right, what are all the containers you want to run in this docker compose. The first, I have Nginx server with pointing to .nginx router, and I'm setting it always restart if it fails. Then an image name which I already just tagged up previously. Oh, this is the image name which I necessarily need to change. So I have to make sure the image name which is actually the same one which is previously. Okay, so the image name this is, and this is the container app, and this is I am just specifying the container name and the ports. For those who want to have an environment inside this container apps and stuff, we can just push it up, have a hyphen environment, and you can have all your environment variables over here. Let me show you up so how it will look like. There also one feature called in the VS Code where I can go before, so you can see here. So previously I just pushing up the environment variable like this, so which is only required for the Python job to run. So you can have like this environment, or else you can just add your .env files up here, which is being directly will get connect to this actual stuff. So that's how it works. So once the environment is get configured with only having only one port has been get exposed, only one server can be running in 80 and 8443. for as I'm targeting to deploy an web app for containers. We are can only expose 80 or 443, nothing else. So, and I have a job here which will be running background. So this is about this Docker file, Docker compose file, and this is like a deployment where I will be directly pointing up to the actual my container registry, the container registry name, and the actual Nginx. So as I was changed, I want to copy this and I will rename here in my Docker file, so that in the deployment file where I can just go up and change the files. So by this we complete the second point also. We got we will need to create this file, or else there was one more option called docker add docker files to the workspace. You can just click, select the whichever options you need, and um, whichever options you need, and you can just pick up where you want. And if you are gonna add it via the extension, which is like a docker extension, so you have to go in a respective folder on VS Code, which makes it easy for you to set up a docker file. If you are not familiar with most for docker and stuff, if you want to learn more, there was a docker playlist, it's available on my channel, so you can go and join and check out the how to grasp lot of things about the dockers and stuff. So as we are completed the second step, we move forward with the third step. Okay, this is the Azure environment. So this is the my ACR container registry. So I can see my repositories and Nginx and the Python job, the ones which we have done in the first step, which is been showing up here. Okay, and the Python job as well. Oh, it seems like we are not pushed the Python job yet, so we will complete it now. So we will go to the Python job. So let this get start. Meanwhile, let me go to the actual container apps. This is the container apps. It's multiple containers which I'm named at. So what we have to do is, as we are doing not the automation deployment, we are doing a manual one. So we can need necessary to go to deployment center. So in the deployment center you can see a lot of provision, lot of options which can be showing up. So what you can do is, you have to select the registry and you have to choose the file. If you see recognize here, this is the previous version which I actually try to deploy and check for the validation services. So now this is done. One sec, let me done as, let me quickly close it off. So as there was no code changes, it's already exists, it says actually. So so that's done. So now what we have to do is, as we actually see, this is in a preview state for container apps, but most probably we can start using this actually. So it is more efficient and more cost cutting when compared to other actual stuff. So if you are trying to make it in container apps, or if you need only certain APIs to get exposed, or if you have a 4 different REST API endpoints which need to communicate internally, or to max to 2 or 3, which you can have a 180 port which need to be an output or exposed port. For that, for internal communication, you can use HTTP with the local container name, where with the container name you can directly interact with the endpoints and get the information out of it. So if you have 4 different if let's assume we have 3 different REST API, one will build in .NET, one will build in Node.js, one build in Python. Okay, So if your node endpoint is the actual endpoint which get exposed with 8080, all other two endpoints you don't need to specify the ports, but you can, with the node endpoint you can directly have ping with the container name which like HTTP. Let me note it. I will okay notepad. It's like a HTTP colon double slash that containers name slash API slash your endpoint, or your path. So you can have with the container name and the path we can directly locally you can able to communicate. You don't need to host multiple app services for it to get consumed for a small or a normal API which will be not frequently using. So it will be inside your infra of the container, so it makes fast. So on the case, so on second step what we are in actually, so we changed that stuff and it is actually pushed now. Let's go and switch the file. So you can see here this is a deploy, and once it is done you can see there was a changes is done. Once this is done, let's go and click save, and let me go up and enable a few settings in the configuration also, where the SCM basic authentication public credentials enable, and there was a new update at present on the web app. For those, they have totally split the configuration and getting everything into the environment variables, and all other general settings they have moved out with these options. If you are here, this is the tip for you. So you can have app settings entire section as a environment variable with the connection string, so you can just manage all stuffs here for you to provide provisions to your read-only access user and other users. This is the better and this is the easiest one, and you can even fetch the, if you have configured with the key vault or any app configurations, you can just fetch the latest data only with a click. If if you are configured with the actual other sources, you can have the sources here, and you can have multiple sources with other options. We will have a different video how to configure those key vaults and other stuff. I'm assuming there was a video already on connecting with Node.js of key vault and .NET also. You can check in my in the video section on my channel, so you can just type for Azure key vault, you will get a lot of content on it. Okay, so the configuration is already here. Let's go to deployment center and let me check my app is actually running. So you can see the multiple container was got initiated and it's ready to serve the request. So you can see the Nginx is here and the Python is also here. The Python is also what got started. Let me go inside the overview and copy this URL. Let me open it up here. You can see here is the plain HTML code to display, and welcome to Nginx. So this is a very simple. So let me go to the one more called log streaming, where I can see all the logs, as I didn't configure any application insights inside. So this will hook up the services which is required and services which need. So let me go to the resource group and go for the, this is the storage account which I am talking, and this is the queue. Can just go inside the queue. There was no message at present. I'll just type welcome to stable and scale. So I'm making it actually 1 hour, and it's encoded where I am actually decoding the actual code file there. So once this is done, let me go up here. As there was a one main point which is the note which is for you. So if you are actually running with the Python environment, you have to manually delete the containers queue message. It won't auto delete as we are actually fetching it up. It won't, once it will stay till the time ends. So most probably if you are actually running container this setup, better delete the actual the message which shows up. Okay, so this is done. Let me go to log stream and check whether the message is executed. And one sec. So and let me check on it. Once sec, let me go to advanced tools and there was a log stream to environment variables where you can directly see here on this application, and all our settings and stuff which will be showing up here. You can see the account's name and storage keys and stuff. On respective to logging and stuff, it takes a bit of time, and for you when you are trying to create the Docker Compose, you have to set up your logging and application instance manually, because while doing the Docker Compose application insights by default creation, it won't appear. You have to do it manual. For the Python, there was a show open some packages for the logging. So if you have to check, you can check on my previous video on the logging perspective, where in the repository there you can check what the file insights file, where you can all the logs will get captured. So as I'm not logging it, I won't able to see it here as well as in any stuff. So that's how actually it works. So let me, so you can see the message is actually gone, which means it was got executed. It goes to so go to Docker logs. If you are actually running multiple, so Docker log is the best place for you to even see. So here or here this will show up, and you can see the message is got triggered. So message is not on the queue, which means it got executed, which is done, and it is, I will be awaiting for a next message to show up. Okay, so as actually I'm printing it off, it won't be displaying on the actual stuff. So on the next upcoming, how to configure the application insights and get the concept, get to see what logs over inside, we can able to see it further. So that completes the third step which we are actually talking about. We have it handy, paste it. Yeah, so which means we deploy the web app. And for container, for those who are still here, here is a thing which you can, which I am going to explain on further. So what is like that was the one thing I said, right? If for the last one, if you don't want to have a container apps for web apps, so there was a one more option called ACI, which is Azure Container Instance. So on other platform it may have a different name, but this Achita is simple. So on the Azure Container Instance, what you can do is like we can have a multiple stuff which is containers. You can set images, or you can have multiple can have a Python job actually specifically running with this version. It will be starting off, and you can set up container Docker Compose also, where you can just push the ACI with the Docker Compose YAML file. It will start spinning it up. So it can be a public, and it can be a stuff, and you can expose whatever the ports which you can do. You can put 101 if you really need 80 and 443. Web app is the best choice for you. If you are gonna need some other ports which need to be exposed, it's like 8080, 443 somewhat, or 3000 if it's node, or some other stuff. It's mostly you can use container instance, but choose it carefully what it's required and what it needs. So because it runs on VPU and GPU, you can go to max 8 core with 32 GB. With by default you will be able to get the GPU, or with V10, which is nothing but actually GPU. If you need to process some image processing style kind of stuff, if you want to set up some streaming server for you to stream your lives and stuff, if you want to have a separate setup for it, you can use these options for the stream and to get it started. So that's on the container insights. If you're still here, this is a extra bonus for you. So we will have a separate video on it, how to set up the containers, how to push and run. We will have a separate video on it. Okay, so that wrap ups all the 3 steps. So hope the takeaways are really like Docker Compose, which means you can run multiple containers in one single app. That's the main takeaway. Most people don't aware on it. And one more takeaway is like they on the web app they made some few features and few changes. If you are going to create, if you need a database by default with the private connectly with the web app, the database option is now showing up in the container in the web app, or either it is web app or web app for containers. So you can have this option, and they took away the app settings, and they renamed with environment variables with a separate section. You can manage all the configuration, and the easy click option for you to fetch from keywords and app configurations. So and all other stuff it's already there. We can have jobs and other stuff. So that wrap up all the 3 steps. And other jargons, Nginx, Python jobs, ACR, web app containers, and lots. There was lot of jargons is going around, so we will be having separates on jargons, how to use the jargons very well. So on the networking profiling stuff, which is more stuff. Okay, so hope you are able to grasp some information and get it start kicking your Dockerization on day 1. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification on so you won't miss out any new video. Until then, I am Lakshman signing off.